when the power goes out, it's pretty common to have a backup generator to run electricity into your home, for it to run your fridge and your freezer and the other appliances you need to run during that blackout, if it's days or weeks. But the electricity has to get from the generator to your house, and I think I have the perfect solution. Full disclosure, company that I'm going to feature here did send me the products for free to demonstrate. I wouldn't tell you good things about them if they weren't good things, and I'll explain why. So the power has gone out, and you've got your generator up and running, and you've got to get the electricity into your house. Generators need to be run outdoors, and they need to be a minimum of 25 feet away from your house. 25 feet from your house means you need probably 50 feet of cord, because you've got, hills and different things you got to get through a window or door, however you're getting there. So don't think 25-foot cord is going to do it. You actually need probably a 50-foot cord at minimum, I would say. In my case, I actually run the longer one, but that's neither here nor there. So it's one of the last things people think about when they're buying a generator, and it's a very important part of the solution that you have for your backup power. Is it's all well and good to have the generator, but you've got to get that power into your house, and you've got to be able to run what you need to run with it. So as an example, I've got my little generator here, which is a 1200 watt generator. I know it says 1500, but that's surge. That's not real. It's actually a 1200 watt generator. And they only have one 120 volt plug on the front of it. So any decent cord will do that. I'll show you what that looks like. If you have more power requirements than that, so if you're running a couple of things that are heavier loads, I'll give you an example. If you're running your fridge and your freezer, and you want to run, say, a coffee maker as well, or you want to run things that you would run normally during a blackout, small appliances, you may have, you want to run your internet, you want to run some, various things like that. Or in my case, I'm actually also probably charging a power station. So I'll run the generator for a couple of hours to charge a power station, and then I can shut it off, and the power station will run the house stuff that I need to run for most of the day. So I might run the generator twice a day for a couple hours. So charging the power station itself, I have an EcoFlow Delta 2, and running at full speed, full charge, is 1500 watts of power. So add 1500 watts to a fridge, to a freezer, to internet, to maybe a couple of other things. Maybe I want to have a cup of coffee because I'm doing this in the morning. So you've got to get a fair bit of power into the house, like 3000 watts worth, probably. Obviously, this isn't going to do it. Either one of these will do it. So to run 3000 watts of power, you've got a couple of options. You can run a couple of cords out of, they have multiple plugs on the front of them. This one has 4, this one has 2. You could possibly do that. However, you need to be aware that this plug here and those there are rated for 20 amps. That's on these 3000 series generators. Most of these generators in this size range are going to be about the same. So you're going to get 20 amps. 20 amps times 110 volts, if they're running at 110 volts, is 2200 watts. Not enough, right? Even if you're running multiple cords, you're going to trip your breaker at your generator. So you need to run 30 amps if you want, 3000 watts worth of power, or 36, well, 120 volts would be 3600 watts, 110 volts, 3300 watts, but you get the general idea. Safe side, 3000 watts of power, which is usually enough to run, small appliances, fridge, freezer, and a few other things, and probably charge, like I do, a power station. So 3000 watts would do it. But you need to get 30 amps in there. You can, if you're not doing all that stuff and you're doing it lightly, you're just doing like a couple of appliances and you're keeping it under, keeping it around 1500 watts, you can probably get away with, a regular power cord. But I want to talk about a couple of these cords that I've got. If you're like me, over the years, you build up a collection of extension cords. And I'm only talking about exterior extension cords, not the interior ones that you use in your house. Don't ever connect that between your generator and your house. It's like you're just asking for trouble. There's differences between these cords when you go to buy them, and that's why some of them cost more than others. And you truly do get what you pay for. But I was just going to show you some bad examples that I've got. So this old cord, I don't even know where it came from. Obviously, it's been modified with a new plug. It's unknown. I don't know what the gauge of this cord is, but I'm going to guess this is a 14 gauge. So a 14 gauge cord is good enough for not super long distances. And also not super heavy loads, but good enough for 20, 25 feet and running, medium loads, you're probably okay. So if you're running a fridge, things like that, 14 gauge cord is probably fine. I wouldn't go too long with them though. The longer you go, there's resistance. The smaller the wire, which means the higher the number of gauge, so 14 gauge on the smaller end. You can get 16 gauge outdoor cords. Never use them for much of anything. I wouldn't use them for anything over 500 watts would be total. But 16 gauge long extension cords are a waste of money in my opinion. Don't even bother with them. 14 gauge is fine for, like I said, if you're running a fridge or a freezer or things like that, probably good enough. I would probably not run this for anything too that I cared about a lot. It's got a lot of melted pieces of insulation. It's probably not a real safe cord, to be honest with you. So this is my, let's call it a backup cord. Here's another one. This is definitely a 14 gauge cord. They're not all color coded, but typically the orange ones are going to be 14 gauge usually. So as you can see, it's probably, I should probably do something about that actually. If I wrap some stuff around, again, this is going to be something I don't use very often, and I use it maybe in the driveway if I want to plug in a tool, not a big tool, but if I want to plug in something like, say, I don't know, a buffer or something for the car, that type of thing, might be okay. I've had this for probably 20 years, and it served me well. But again, you can't depend on this. I would not run power into my house off my generator with this cord. I think you're just asking for trouble, and especially if it's going to be wet weather or anything like that. This one's got so many breaks and things like that in the insulation that, again, just asking for trouble. The problem is if you get a short or you get things like that happening on your cord, yeah, there's fire hazard and all that kind of stuff, but it's also possible you're going to damage whatever you got it plugged into. So remember that too. It's just not good practice. You're just asking for trouble. Here's another old cord, because we never throw anything out, right? So this one is probably maybe the first cord when they had ground plugs invented. I don't know. It's pretty old. Yeah, I'm going to guess this is maybe 50 years old. I'm not sure. It's a short one though. It does have its uses in a pinch if I need them, but I generally, I'm not going to use this too much. I recently did buy this. So this is ideal if you're running just 15 amps and no more. So up to 1800 watts. Great part about this, it's got a locking, it'll lock whatever you plug it into. So if I plug those in like so, I can't easily pull them apart. You have to press the button to get them apart. So it's a true outdoor cord. It is a true 12 gauge, and I'm quite comfortable running quite a bit of stuff on this. I even, I ran an air compressor, the big air compressor, off this cord. And I don't have too much of an issue. This is a 50-foot cord. I don't think I would, now I have run the big air compressor on, longer than that cord, and I really shouldn't, and I'm lucky it still works at all. That should not be a thing. But for most things, this is what you're probably going to run off. If you're running off a generator and you're running no more than 15 amps or 1800 watts or 1700 watts, and you can see it's all marked on the side of these cords that it is a 12 gauge. It'll say 12 AWG, that means American wire gauge, 3 by 3.31 millimeter. That's the size of the actual copper that's inside there. And so that's a good safe cord. But it's not going to run what I need to run in my house during a power outage. So I'll show you the solution for that. My solution for running the amount of power that I want to run into my house, to charge my power station, to run my fridge, to run my freezer, to run my internet, to run my coffee maker, to do all of those things, is not to have a whole bunch of cords, is to have one cord to rule them all. And it's this guy right here. What it really is an RV cord. It's a 30 amp, it's rated for 30 amps of power. This one in particular is 100 feet and it weighs 30 pounds. I would want it to weigh 30 pounds because I need to know that it's got at least that much copper in it. So they are a little heavy, and that is one issue, but I know that I can run anything I want on this. Now, connections of this to your house. It is an RV cord, so if you've got an RV, great. You're all set for your 30 amp hookup to your RV. But for generator use, the company also makes matching adapters. So this is your twist lock adapter. Your 30 amp twist lock adapter looks like that. And the way that they work on generators that have it, the little yellow one up here, of course, does not, because it wouldn't run this kind of power. But the way that they work, you can only put them in one way. You go in, and you give it a twist, and it's in there good and solid. And it's not going to get yanked out or anything like that. And then this one, which is the typical 30 amp plug that you would have on an RV, like at a campground, to plug into your camper. Only goes in one way. Got good safe handles to put them together and pull them apart, because you're talking about a lot of power here, and a good connection. These are obviously a lot larger. When you compare them, they're a lot larger than your typical 110, 120 volt plug. A lot more surface area, a lot more solid. The other end of that cord is, of course, the female version of that. And then the adapter that, this is what you'd use at a campground with your RV, but then you can take the adapter, and now I've got 320 volt plugs or sockets. This is what it would be inside my house. And I know that I've got 30 amps of power available here. So I've got ample opportunity to plug it. If I've got a plug it in my power station to charge, that takes one plug. I might have an extension cord with a couple of things coming off that are light loads. So it's just options, right? So I've got one cord now, or one system, that can run everything I need to run during a power outage. I can go to a campground with an RV if and when that happens. And it just gives me all the options I want. The reason you want one system that can do everything is because there's an investment here, right? This stuff is not super cheap. You can cheap out on your extension cords. It's a bad idea. It's just, if you've got a decent enough generator, then you've also got to factor in your budget enough for getting the power to your house. I need 100 feet to get where I need to go and where I need to set up the generator. So that's what I've got, is 100 feet here. To run that kind of power over 100 feet, you need good wiring. There's just no compromise there. If you run under gauge wire, then what happens is it heats up. There is resistance over that kind of length, and the voltage will drop, and your appliances or things that you have plugged in may not work correctly, could damage them. You're going to lose efficiency. I saw a test of a guy that was testing out, it was a 14 gauge versus a 12, 10, I can't remember. Anyway, the over 100 feet on a 14 gauge, it was 50 watts of power that the actual cord took. The cords take power, especially if they're smaller. Smaller cords take their own amount of power because of the resistance they have. They're like heaters, basically. They're exactly the same thing as an electric heater. Electric heater has really small wires that heat up and glow and create heat. Exactly what an extension cord does. But if it's thick enough, then it's not going to create anything that you're going to worry about. If it's too small, though, you're going to lose all that power and possibly have problems with melted insulation, short circuits, things like that. It's just not worth it. Invest in your power cords as much as you invest in your generator or your power system or however you're running that. A little bit about these particular products, and I have links in the description, as I said, if you want to check them out. They are not super cheap, and honestly, I wouldn't want them if they were super cheap. That just means that they're going to be cheaply made. It costs a certain amount of money to make this kind of quality, but they're also not the most expensive. They're good value for the money. But just a little bit about what this is. This is rated for 3,750 watts. They are UL listed, so they've got all their certifications. There's a bunch of standards they list, UL 817 standards, UL 62 standard. They are flame retardant. This is a flame retardant casing. They are meant for extreme weather. They are waterproof, weather resistant IP65. They are cold resistant down to minus 50 Celsius. They're corrosion resistant. You can use them indoor or outdoor. They are obviously yellow, which is, I like a nice bright yellow cord, so because they're outside, tripping hazard, that type of thing. The handles are quite good, I must say, for connecting, and they do come with a warranty. So I'm just reading this, of course, off of their specs. They are the company's actually called, well, it's M1A2 is the name of the brand, but it's from my test and from what I've seen, and I did use them at least once. They do what they say they do, and judging from the build quality, I'm totally impressed. It came with like a carry handle, like a Velcro thing to strap around, because this is a 30-pound extension cord. However, this is the 100-foot version, and it doesn't really, the wrap that it came with didn't really reach, so I don't know how much I would trust that, to be honest with you. It came with a nice cloth to wipe it off with after, because, you know, they do get dirty when they're outside, so that was a nice touch too. But yeah, there are other brands, of course, and you know, certainly if you don't buy this brand, buy another brand that's of the similar quality would be my recommendation. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it very much. Subscribe if you haven't. I really do appreciate it. And hit the like button. It does help me out a little bit. And I guess my takeaway here is, you know, don't skimp on your cord. If you've invested in the generator, don't skimp on the cord, and don't forget about getting the electricity into your house.